Hi everyone, welcome to my channel today. We're going to be talking about Ready to Love, and today's episode, of course, is season 4, episode 7, and it's called The Friend Zone. So, we start off with the Gentleman's Lounge. We've got 6 gentlemen left and nephew Tommy. So today, the mission, of course, we will start the week off with the mission. The mission this week is that they're going to be introducing their lady love interest to their group of friends so they can get another perspective on their choice, so they can have another way to look at what's going on. So we're gonna see a couple things. So the first couple that we kind of see their meeting is Joel and V. And so Joel introduces V to 3 of his good friends. And she talks about how she does mention some mention of being territorial and having a focus on wanting to get married. And yeah, I guess that, the meeting themselves, it was nice and light and fluffy, but after she left, the friends, considered, red flags as her possibly being clingy. And it looks like there were some underlying issues prior to things we hadn't seen on the camera or things that happened, on whatever happened. And so her statements, his friends' opinions kind of brought that to the forefront. So now we can see that my man Joe is having second guessing himself and having second feelings, second thoughts. We didn't see this coming, but here it is. So now he's having second thoughts about his choice on V. The second meeting we have now, KG introduces Amber to 2 of his friends while he's recording a podcast. And it seems all easy breezy. They go talking. One of the questions one of the friends asked was, had she mentioned, or talked about KG or Chris, let's call him Chris today, and she'd mentioned Chris to any of her friends or family members, and rightfully so, she hadn't. And KG understood that, so that didn't become a problem. In fact, they seemed to have a nice meeting, both in front of the friends, and even after she left, the friends were like, ooh, that's nice. They had all this ooh, ah, ah. But that's still left to be seen, the way I see, because I'm still wondering if Amber is still looking or focused on him, or if there's going to be something else going into the next set. So now it's going to be Jason. First lady that comes into the scene is Liz. Liz comes to meet 2 of his friends. They sit down, and then they start playing this like indoor kind of golf posturing. I'm not sure what it is, and it's probably a minute into the seating, or at least what they show us. Next one that comes on the scene is Kyra. So he has Kyra and Liz on this double date with his friends for them to judge. And so they go talking. I think the main topic they talk about is, what they see as the head of the household and the way things are running, the state of things today. And of course, Kyra says her thing about, she wants the man to lead, and, she don't want to be the alpha next to her man. And then Liz goes on to say that she wants, her husband to be the spiritual, the spiritual force, the head, this. So they'll both say all these nice little things. Everything goes well. And then I'm not sure if it was designed like that by production, but then, Liz leaves, and gives them a good amount of time to talk just with Kyra. I'm not sure if that was how it was, or they designed it however it was. That's what happened. And so when, Kyra finally leaves, the friends feel like, oh, they say that they feel like, Liz seems like the first lady and very stuffy, which I didn't perceive at all. And I think, and then before I tell you what I think, then they go and say, oh, Kyra seems more like his type, and Kyra's okay. And so when we look at this scene, really, to me, and this is one of the reasons why I've probably had an issue with Jason being a choice of hers, is the age gap is not that much. But my issue is not so much with his age, but his person. I don't know him very well, but he does not seem to be mature enough. So if he's not mature enough, his friends didn't seem mature enough either. So their perception of Liz were, let's say young people, judging a mature woman. That's what it seemed like. So all they're saying is that she's stuffy, seems like the first lady. No, she wasn't stuffy. She's a lovely, she seemed fine to me. I don't know what they saw, but then again, that's what really, when you talk about mindset, mind state, they're somewhere else, she's somewhere else. She's a business owner, she's a CEO, she's grown, she's been through things. They haven't been through that, and so they can't appreciate her for what she brings to the table. And unfortunately, or fortunately, because I didn't think Jason was for her, it looks like he's taking on what they say and takes it to heart. I'm like, oh yeah, they confirmed what he thought. So the next date is AJ and Kyra. And so AJ has 2 of his friends and Kyra comes over. And, you know, it just seems like, you know, fun, light, you know, they get talking. And one thing I did like what Kyra said was like, yeah, she wasn't just going to be there to be grilled, but she was going to use this as an opportunity to see if she could get more information and more of a perspective to see what, you know, what his friends thought of him in terms of him being serious or being ready to settle down. And she left, their consideration was that, yeah, they definitely felt like, you know, Kyra was into AJ, but they felt that she had her guard up, rightfully so. You're meeting strangers. I'm not sure what they expected, but this is neither here nor there. But what I did notice and what we all saw was Alexis was not one of those dates, people. So once again, we'll see how this plays out. But you know, Alexis, I feel like she's kind of been planning for AJ, but AJ did not even take the time out to make her an additional date. So that says a lot right there. Carries his focus. So the next date we see is Ron in a lounge with his friends. And of course, the two ladies he invites are Ron and Lexus. You know, Lexus is in this very interesting cat suit, you know, cutouts. And fancy this, Alexis talk about somebody looking sexy. I don't know, but I guess Alexis feels a very strong sense of competition towards or with Chrysanthemum. For whatever reasons, this girl tends to trigger, I believe, some of her insecurities. I don't know if it's based on the way the girl carries herself, you know, maybe if it's this, you know, colorism is coming into dating because there are different shades. I'm not sure what it is, but it definitely looks like, you know, Alexis seems to be triggered anytime, you know, Chrysanthemum's name comes up, or the fact that she and, you know, Chrysanthemum are kind of going for the same man. So the date starts, you know, and Chrysanthemum, or Chris, really, her position, I feel like the way she's saying it, she doesn't feel like she needs to prove herself, and she's a little offended that she's, you know, having to preen for the friends so that so they can get to like her. So even in the conversation, you can see, I don't think it's an inability for her to speak or express herself, but she did say she'd rather the conversation went organically, but she definitely is against wanting to show off and to put her best foot forward, almost like she has to make an effort, whereas she feels like just by looking at her, that should be all the efforts that's required. So not to say that she doesn't have a personality, but she didn't even feel the need to put it on display. And of course, Alexis is doing her own thing, and, you know, doing a thing. And so she's really jumping into the competition, because right now it's a competition for her. It's clear, I won't say it's clear, but to me, it doesn't look like she's all for Ron, but she's all for the competition. So she's putting both feet in, foot forward. And at this date, you know, Chrysanthemum leaves early either by design or production, however it is. She ends up leaving early. Alexis spends some more time kind of cementing her footing, and then ends off with that. Don't figure who your number one is. It's number one is. If they bring up that number one stuff again, we'll be done with everyone. But anyway, she finally leaves, and of course the friends, you know, they say that they like, you know, Alexis. She's personable. She's this. She's that. You know, that Chris doesn't really talk that much. And, you know, Ron says, you know, Chris is like me. And they're like, well, maybe you don't want someone like you. Maybe you want someone like Alexis, because you should be thinking more of the future, not of now. We're on to the next date. And this is David, you know, having Liz meet up with his friends. And one of the friends, I think it was the guy who was like, you know what? She's 40. She's never been married. Is she crazy? I'm a little irritated by that statement. And to assume that she's crazy just because she's single and never been married, you don't know the story or the background, so that, you know, careless statement, you know, David seems impressionable. I don't know if that made it either way, but then also in this scene, David does confess that, you know, Liz had mentioned to him right after the date with Jason that they had shared a kiss. And it seems almost like he's approaching it with that energy. I don't know if it's to punish her, or if now he's having second thoughts. You know, we know he had some kind of insecurities in past relationships with being left. I don't know if that's what's being triggered, but it almost seems like from the ball to now, it's a different person. He doesn't have that energy. Like, you know, when the kids say keep that same energy, he's not keeping that same energy. He was trying to put his mark all over her, you know, mark his territory. Now he's trying to erase any scent of him on her. That, to me, that's enough. That tells me what you need to know right there. Because, you know, when push comes to shove, this is how you're going. You're not even going to have a conversation. This is the premise of the show. You went on a show which has this premise, yet you now seem to be having second thoughts, talking about you want to take your time, do this, like all these new conversation we weren't hearing before. You know, sometimes in life it seems that things happen. So the last episode, it was like, ah, geez, you know, what's Jason doing? But maybe by design, Jason was there to just, you know, help us see. I don't know if it was going to help, let's see, help us see that David wasn't about anything. Because if this is what's just going to stop everything right here, now I'm done with you. But moving on. And so we have another date. Now, this is not a meet my friends date. This is, you know, the small boy, Jason, wanting to cement his position with Kyra. So he invites her to this museum place, you know, where they have paintings. Beautiful, beautiful date, beautiful premise. You know, it's really nice. Kyra looks nice. Everything's looking smooth. I'm just not amused by one of the characters, which is Jason. So he's just trying to say, look, girl, I'm only into you. Forget everybody else. You know, maybe maybe he understands that he's not the only competition. You know, he has a lot of competition, so he's trying to, you know, place the bets and like push it this way, gets a kiss. All right, Jason, you made your point. Let's see how it is. But really, Jason, I think my good sis Kyra, she looking at AJ. Like, if AJ do right, it's gonna be AJ. And you're just gonna come out last. But that's okay, because not everybody can win. We're all meant to learn lessons here, so maybe this is gonna be a lesson for Jason. But I digress. So the date happens, and so the next place we go to, dun, dun, Gentleman's Lounge, and this is where the show starts. So let's begin slowly. So starting with Joel. Joel goes on to, you know, nephew Tommy introduces, say, okay guys, tell me about the week. So Joel goes on to describe his date with, you know, with V. And he says, you know, he feels like V is being a little too clingy. He does confess that they had an argument over the phone the night before, so his energy about her is all off. Okay. You know, Jason goes on to describe how on the date with Kyra and Liz, you know, his friends had said really nice things about him, and I guess he wasn't used to that. He had a little emotional moment. So, yeah, he went on, talked about his date, and yeah, clearly with Jason, Kyra's is, you know, his one he's gunning for. Going on to Ron. Ron talks about his date with, you know, Chris, and Alexis explains how his friends had told him that, you know, they noticed Chris wasn't really into it. You know, the guys kind of concur, like Chris is shallow. Chris had said something about Joel, about, you know, to Joel, how the kids would be, you know, the attention for her would be divided because he has kids. Somebody had something else there, but how maybe she doesn't really. Anyway, so long and short is Ron is looking at Alexis as the deep future. All right, okay. And then so nephew Tommy decides, okay, let me shake this thing up. I don't know how it cut to that, but he's like, look, if this process was to end tonight, who would your choice be? And ladies and gentlemen, this is where the coup happened. All of a sudden, first person, AJ, he's like, if it ended tonight, Kyra would be his pick. Any surprises here? We're not surprised. We've, you know, it's been established in the last 2-3 episodes. Okay, cool. Next person, Joel. Joel, if this process ended tonight, who would your pick be? He said Kyra with his mouth. So we know that they do a lot of editing. We know that a lot of scenes end up on the floor. So maybe this was like, you know, to emphasize this coup that's going on. They kept these clips away from us. But when did Joel and Kyra even have a conversation other than, you know, at the meeting, at the mixer? I haven't seen it. All right, person is David. David, if this process ended tonight, who would be your choice? This clown puts his arms around his brothers and is like, hey, Kyra, what? Kyra doesn't want you. Yeah, at this point, you know, Jason's like, what is going on? They're trying to take my lady? I don't know. It's just, it makes no sense. And yeah, I still feel like we're being punked. Ron, next, of course, he goes on with Alexis. We're not surprised by that. You know, Chris, you know, we're not surprised, goes on with Amber. Jason, you know, we're not surprised. Kyra's his pick too. So we have 4 gentlemen gunning for Kyra. How did Kyra come in and perform this coup? Yeah, she looked nice. She dressed nice. She's an attorney. She's smart. But there's something else going on here. We're still trying to figure it out. And I think it's more to do with the gentlemen than the females that were left. So if we break it down, Joel, who has been my favorite up until now, clearly is, I don't want to say he's here for other reasons, but just maybe not mature enough or reacting out of the argument he had with, V. And so, because even after he said Kyra in his confessional, he says the V is still his baby. I don't know what he's playing at, and I'm not amused. And he looks really ridiculous right now. I don't know what's going on. We break that down. AJ, we don't need to break anything down with AJ. AJ has been somewhat consistent. He was initially kind of turned off by Alexis, has played the game to keep Alexis as his backup, but seemed to have always been looking at, Kyra. So that makes sense. Jason, he would kind of dabble into, got a little confused looking at somebody's body and was a little split up, but he has been somewhat consistent, had been looking at, Kyra literally from jump. David? See, I was trying to give him a chance, initially. And, a questionable history. His, past relationships clearly does not seem to have healed. But I feel this move right here just center. It's almost like, when it almost seems like some of these gentlemen use this move because they want to self-eliminate, because that's the only thing that makes sense. It's like they're done, they've gotten to a certain part. Because Kyra ain't checking for you, David. Not today, not tomorrow, and probably not ever. So was this a move to self-eliminate? We'll see. Going on to, Joel. Joel has, decent, but at the same time, I haven't seen them have a date. So I don't know if he was also figured that, because all of a sudden it's come out that, he's got a music video, he's got this. Oh my goodness, right. Season 4 is already turning out to be an S show. I'm not amused by all of this. And then David has the audacity to question how many people are into Kyra. That how did she get around this week? I know you don't have the audacity to say something, because how did her name come out through those two lips of yours? I'm save some of the smoke for later, because I just want to see there's something else going on. I know production likes to, they like to play around with things. They like to meddle. They like to just to make it all interesting. This is not interesting. This is like perplexing, almost annoying. And I think it's triggering for everyone, just really showing these men in a poor light, because how in a few hours, everything just kind of changes, or in a week, things just change and all of a sudden it's one person. This is not high school, and they're meant to be mature gentlemen. So we go into the elimination, who's towards, I guess in their discussion. Ron, he's never been one of my faves. But from time to time, he says something that he says or does things that I find interesting. And one of the things, a comment he made that I'd like us to break down is he called Chris, KG, a niche market guy who needed a niche market girl. So what's he trying to say? So this is my interpretation. His interpretation is what he's saying is that, Chris doesn't have that much to offer. So he needs someone who's okay to bring his half to the table. I guess because, Ron's position is like, he's ready to cover you. He has no issue with finances or anything else. He's looking, and the joke is, in the beginning, if we remember, it was the first, like when they had the mixer, when he saw Chris or KG come onto the scene, he was, I don't know if you want to say he was intimidated, but he was taken aback, like, that's not fair. Like, he really you had a little issue, like you were feeling threatened, but now you got your chest out. You're feeling yourself now, like your muscles out. All of a sudden, like, KG, Chris, and niche market guy. Like, I'm not totally disagreeing with that little assessment he made, but I'm just saying, like, how things have changed. All of a sudden, he's like, yeah, he's not feeling threatened by that guy at all. That he has nothing to offer. So So we've got the elimination dates lined up. So we have, Ron meets up with Liz, and he's really kind. Liz knows something is up because they hadn't really had or made any arrangements prior to meeting up. And then, of course, simultaneously we have, Chris meeting up with Chris. Okay, so I feel Chris could have been a little more he should have had a different, he had this arrogant energy, which I don't know what he arrogant about. Like he was enjoying every minute. I'm not sure why he wasn't. And I thought what annoyed me in this date was I don't understand why Chris was insisting on hugging her. Like that's bullshit. Like he's taking. I felt like he was taking the piss, and I wish production not allowed that. Why? You came here to eliminate this girl. You were part of the people who wanted her eliminated, but now you're insisting. Give me a hug. Give me a real hug. Yuck. I'm annoyed by that. Just also all of a sudden he's feeling the exchange of power. So he's no longer, well, today he's not on the chopping block. He knows what it feels like, but he seems to be delighting in it. You already know what you came here to say. So what are you saying? You just need to let her know the guys felt this and da 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 da. Why you insist on hugs twice? And Chris was irritated. She's no dummy. She already knows that we already had this date that made paint dry. Look, it was like watching paint dry. Why are we meeting up again? So she kind of knows that either she's in the bottom two to be as a warning, or she's going to be sent home. But still, there was some surprise, when he says, well, you no longer raise love. It's not okay. But yeah, I'm getting annoyed by this whole thing. I wonder if at this point, because at this point we know, okay, so Liz was saved. But Liz has clocked that, you know what, if she was in the bottom two, then David wasn't for her. I hope she's clocked that already. So, but looking at this, it just makes me see that, yeah, the season is changing. It's changing. It's different from last season. But the truth is, like, whoever ends up, like, at this point, what couples will really be together and stay together? I mean, and looking at it, let's look at it for a second. Okay, so AJ and Kyra, possibility, but they have history. I don't know. Is it competition? Could they could. Who is Joel going to end up with now? Because he's turning his eye on V, and V should not take this lightly. This was a betrayal. She should be done with him. So I don't know who Joel's going to end up with. He's going to switch up and get Amber, snatch Amber from Chris. Who's Chris going to end up with? Amber gets snatched. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, if anything at all, if there is one couple that may come out of this, it might be AJ and Kyra. And even then, because of their history, who knows? When the sense of competition has died down, they might start asking each other real questions, and it might, really make sense as to maybe they weren't meant to be. That's why that initial El Cheapo scenario happened anyway, because he was flippant about it at the time, but all of a sudden now he's sorry. Look, this episode really kind of ruffled feathers. I think for everyone, it made no sense. The immature behavior, the Gestapo, like all of a sudden, the overthrow, the coup. And this has nothing to do with Kyra and his ladies. This week, these men showed their asses, and not in a great light. I really don't know how they can come back from this. And AJ was never my favorite, but he was consistent. Ron was never my favorite, but he's been consistent. Chris, he's either here or there, but it is what it is. You know what? With David, who presents himself as a Christian gentleman who's had, some bad experiences in the past, he really leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and I think in anyone else's. And it really goes to show you that when we as females go to church, the devil does sit in those pews with you. It doesn't mean if you meet a gentleman in church that that's the one to be, because just the whole way he played this, if he truly had an issue, if the issue was just with, okay, maybe she had, kissed Jason, or it was whatever issue he may have had, it could have been a discussion. And if he really was who he likes to present himself to be, well, clearly we already know that he doesn't know who he is, because he started this off as, he's got a dozen professions, doesn't want to be left by anyone. So we know this guy has issues, but just the way he played the game this week should guarantee his exit next week. That's just all I'm saying with how he's presented himself, because this was a betrayal. However you look at it, I'm not sure what he's going to try. I'm really curious to see how he's going to try and paint it. But to come out to be one thing, to come out to say one thing, but to be another, he's a warning. Sisters, don't go to church and start looking for a brother in church, because it doesn't mean that just because he knows where the Bible is, knows where the chapters, he knows where Ephesians is, and knows where he can find Romans in 2 minutes.
Maybe 20 seconds.
Doesn't mean that he's the person for you. because this gentleman is confused. He doesn't know who he is, what he wants, even how he wants to go about it. I'm still confused as to why he decided to go on this show, what he really stands to gain. I'm not sure. I don't know, maybe he's trying to sell something. He does real estate, right? He likes to officiate weddings, right? You know, he likes to, maybe he's looking for all these things in real estate investment. Maybe he's looking for all these things by exposure on the show, because he's not moving like someone with integrity, or like someone who's looking for a life partner. Because immediately he's just been acting straight. Like he's been moving mad. In Kojo's words, this guy's been moving mad. That's all I have to say about him. And for Joe, I had high hopes for, but I'm completely disappointed by the way he's, presented himself. And I don't think he's more or less, out there for the streets. But that's another brother who seems confused, because he's saying two things through different corners of his mouth. On one end, he actually picked somebody else. I don't know if he knew the gravity of what he did in the elimination area, but completely just kind of leaving V on the floor. And to V's fault, it appears that she's only focused on one person. It appears to be that, and that's going to be a detriment for her, because he's not moving in a way that, and really in real life, and I think that's what brings up the lessons in real life. Can you really put all your eggs in one basket? Can you really focus and depend on one person? And the truth is you can't, and I think this just emphasizes it. He seems like a nice guy. He has been one of my favorites actually, but the way he's moved simply emphasizes what happens in real life. It's never what it seems, and it changes. Now, I don't know the speed at which it changed, or how it changed, or what transpired behind the scenes, but the fact remains that it changed. And this happened without V's knowing. I don't think V knows that it's changed for him, but it hasn't changed for her. She's left out there in the cold. So once again, this show is annoying as heck, but it really does, in some shape or form, end up reflecting what really happens in real life. Because how many females can put their hands up out there and say that, you know what, they were bamboozled by someone's reaction. One day everything was fine, next day, their calls will go into voicemail, and with no understanding as to what might have occurred or transpired, or one small understanding all of a sudden is over. Then did anything really mean anything if one small understanding led somewhere else? And that's what I'm saying. So guys, that's a summation for this week. There's, Kyra had a coup. She's in everyone's top. She's in, top running. So clearly she's probably going to end up in the final or not. This thing changes by the minute. We're dealing with like kindergartens here. Like, these kids are just, playing with toys like it's a joke. So at the end of this episode, that's what's going on. So guys, this is left to be seen. I'm excited to see some clips, because some people have it coming to them. And I have my eye on Jason, and I have my eye on David. And then the rest can happen wherever it happens. But guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and give me your opinion, because this was just, it was too much today. It was too much, a little too much. And I feel maybe a heavy hand of production was in this, because I hate to believe that grown men all of a sudden just, it's okay, you can change your mind, but just like flip-flopping, all of them seem to flip-flop quickly. And so that when things happen that don't make sense in terms of when you're looking at human nature and it's a show, then you begin to look at production funny and like, okay, did you take out so much that it doesn't make a lot of sense? That's why we're surprised? Or have there been some whisperings to make it dramatic? It's not dramatic, it's annoying right now, because it's not realistic, or maybe it is realistic, because dating in today really is kind of odd. Anyway, guys, that's it for me right now. Thank you, Lola. Over and out.